a very vicious species of psychological
I should
warfare.
just stand by. Is it going on right now? Do we want to take this live to hear from the airlines? We can't do it live? Okay. All right, so there is a news conference going on right now with some of the people from the airlines. We'll try to get to that just as soon as we can, Dr. Post. I wasn't sure if we needed to interrupt. Let me ask you this, because we have had Jim Zogby on from the Arab American Institute. Of course, he is urging caution, not leaping to speculation. And we do simply want to say that you've been in this field for a long time, and this is your most likely scenario. Are there other possibilities here? Do you have any signature of possible domestic terror of groups other than Osama bin Laden?
No, I do think, for example, there certainly wouldn't have been a right-wing conspiracy within the United States. Having said that, I think it's really important to emphasize there's a major tension within the Muslim world, and that there are some radical Islamists who would call this does not characterize all of Islam by any means, and I'm sure that's what Mr. Zogby's concern is, that this would lead to some feeling against Muslims in general.
He specifically mentioned concern about backlash.
Having said that, within and it's a major tension. How do they disassociate?
But there is the sense from some of these groups that there are no front lines in our country. Civilians, children are targeted by Israel, by other nations, by the United States when we attack Iraq. So the United States and Americans should feel what it's like to have no lines in their land.
Yes, and there's also the feeling of revenge. And what's really important to understand with these, particularly young individuals who get incorporated into the group, this is killing in the name of God. It becomes a sacred obligation under an extremely radical interpretation of the Quran, that they are in fact defending their faith against the unbelievers and retaliating for injustices done. So it's got an even higher significance. Also, the pilots who flew into the buildings, they are not committing suicide. And this was emphasized again and again in the lectures we conducted. They, in fact, they are seeking martyrdom, which is very different than suicide.
Okay, and this is what we have seen in the Middle East repeatedly with the people who are willing to strap on the explosives. It's just
absolutely.
On a grander scale now.
Yes, absolutely.
If I may ask you one final question, then, given that difficulty, what possible response could the government make? There is no. If you strike back, you engender more hatred. If you don't strike back, you look vulnerable. So the United States is literally, as Lark said, in a box here.
Yes, I think that's very true in the immediacy of the situation, and it's very important that we not overreact in the immediacy of this situation. In the long term, what's terribly important is this is not a war won with bombs and with retaliation of Delta forces. This is a war for people's minds, and that is what is really crucial.
Could this attack been carried out without any government sponsorship from the Sudans, from the Libyas, from any of those countries which we have associated with terrorism?
It is possible indeed, because the Al-Qaeda group is almost a...
and this is bin Laden's group.
This is bin Laden's group. It's almost a non-government government. I mean, it's so widespread. Having said that, there are a number of facilitating countries who have often provided logistical support in the past in a deniable fashion.
Let me ask you about what some of the likely immediate response is going to be in terms of more security here. We're just hearing the possibility that they are going to close, at least for today, the U.S.-Mexico border. Is that an appropriate response to this type of incident?
That strikes me as a somewhat strange one, but having said that, we had coming over the Canadian border some Algerian Islamists supported again by Osama bin Laden, who had as a target the Los Angeles airport.
I want to ask you about a historical point here. During the 70s, the reign of terrorism swept through Europe. You had the Red Army. You had the
bombings at the Rome airports.
You had incidents at Wad Airport of Munich. And yet those groups apparently were successfully infiltrated and vanquished, or at least we thought they were. Now, what happened then and what possibly might happen now?
Well, it's important to distinguish among the different types of terrorism. Those groups you spoke of, the Baader-Meinhof gang, Red Army faction, Red Brigades, were social revolutionary terrorists who saw themselves as inspired by Marxist-Leninism. We had the national secularist terrorists of some of the non-religious Palestinian groups as well as what we see in Ireland, by the way, Northern Ireland. Well, what we've now seen in recent years is an increase of religious fundamentalist terrorism. And what is frightening about that is, unlike other terrorisms, which are seeking to influence an audience here on Earth, for them, their mission is above. And
Dr. Post, I just want to interrupt you for a second. Now, United Airlines is confirming that a second United plane has crashed. Remember, the first one, they said, did crash in southwestern Pennsylvania.
Right. So now we have a second one. We are waiting for the location there. So now we have American Airlines with the 2 missing planes. A United plane has crashed. And now confirming a second one. We're going to have that location probably in just a moment. Dr. Post, stand by. We want to go to our John Henrahan, who's at Arlington Hospital. John, what have you got? John Henrahan, can you hear us?
Mr. Richard, brother. My wife is in Indianapolis. Her flight was grounded. I've had a real difficult day, but she'll probably be calling you.
Can you tell us who we're hearing now? Who are we hearing? Obviously, we're trying to get John Henrahan.
I want to come over and stay with you. Take care.
Okay, we'll come back to that. We're not sure who we're talking to right now, so we will get back to that. Dr. Post, just your reaction after this news that obviously now at least 4 commercial airliners were involved in this. At least 4, probably more, because we're not sure about which one was involved with the
as well as the car bomb outside of a State Department.
Well, they were saying that did not happen.
I see.
Yeah, they did say that did not happen.
Actually, I believe right now we are going to go to our Karen Gray Houston. Is that correct?
Karen yeah, tell us where you are, Karen.
Hi, we are live at Freedom Plaza, and really what I have to tell you is this is like something we have never seen before. This is like a city, not really just a city, but a nation under siege. This is downtown Washington, D.C. It is absolutely paralyzed. Now, if you'll take a look down Pennsylvania Avenue towards the Capitol, from about 12th Street and beyond, there is nothing but traffic gridlock. We have not seen anything like this since probably the early 80s, 1982, I think it was, when Air Florida crashed into the 14th Street Bridge. Traffic was gridlocked. There was a snowstorm at the time. There was also a subway accident, a subway accident on the Metro, and traffic then was at a standstill. It's like that right now. If you'll turn around here, there's also a heightened sense of security right in front of the Ronald Reagan building. As you know, all the federal workers have gone home. The buildings are shut down. Police, federal agents, Secret Service are lining the entire block along Pennsylvania Avenue, the district building, and beyond. It's all closed off right to East Street down by the White House. Now, the fear here after what happened with the World Trade Center towers and what happened at the Pentagon and what's happening elsewhere around the country, what could possibly happen next? The FBI, within the last couple of years, has launched a very aggressive media campaign telling people that Washington, D.C. was ripe to be a target for terrorist attacks by people like terrorist Osama bin Laden. And here we are right now at ground zero, and people are concerned about what's going to happen next. We're live at Freedom Plaza. Karen Gray, Houston, Fox 5 News. We are now going to get a live report from John Henrahan. John?
Karen, I'm at Arlington Hospital, which is receiving officially 26 patients. By my count, though, it's more like 30. So far, no fatalities are reported here. Most of the injuries appear to be survivable. All of the people who have come here, of course, have come from the Pentagon. A lot of these patients have complained of shortness of breath. Hospital officials started getting nervous about hearing that complaint over and over, and they have distributed cotton masks and sturdier gloves to a lot of the physicians and nurses at the ambulance entrance. We were told by a nurse that they are precautions in case some kind of biological agent may be involved in the attack. There is no evidence that that is the case, but hospital officials were concerned enough to start dressing their nurses and their physicians in masks and sturdier gloves because of the possibility that a biological agent might be involved. Again, there has been no evidence of that so far, but the doctors and nurses are worried about it. By my count, the patient load here is about 30, and a hospital vice president just told me they can take more patients, and they are expecting more. That is the latest from Arlington Hospital.
Okay, John, thank you so much for that update. John Henrahan is at Arlington Hospital monitoring the injuries that are being brought in there. And so far, John is saying no fatalities, but concern about this complaint of shortness of breath. We're joined on the phone now by one of your colleagues, Dr. Post at GW, Daryl Jenkins, who is considered to be an expert in aviation and terrorism matters. Professor Jenkins, can you hear us?
Yes, I can very well.
Let's get just your reaction to this scenario that's being played out here.
Well, this is the worst possible thing any of us ever could have dreamed up, and I think it's safe to say that all of our lives will be different from this day out in the airline industry. Things will never again be as they were before.
Dr. Jenkins, we talked about the scarcity of any hijackings in the past 20 years or so since we had the phenomenon of planes being hijacked to Cuba and they took all the precautions. How could apparently at least 4 commercial jetliners with passengers on board be hijacked within 2 hours of each other?
Well, I think a terrorist who is dedicated, like Dr. Jerry Post was talking about, can do these things. I don't think you would even need to smuggle weapons on the plane. Book 20 or 30 of your dedicated terrorists on a plane. Using things in the galley, you could storm the pilots, the cockpit, and get in and fly the planes in. So I think there are so many ways that you can do this that it's just incredible that they could have organized this much at this time. Certainly, what has happened is way beyond the scope where people would be smuggling planes and stuff on board planes. They've used techniques that we've never been exposed to before in most likelihood.
And of course, Professor Jenkins, recently the airlines put into place a new profile screen, a very controversial screening method where they were supposed to target and select out some of these people who they might be at risk.
It appears that the people who were terrorists probably very well understood the screening profiles. If you book a long time in advance, if you buy a round-trip ticket, you check baggage, you get on the plane with your wife and kids, and you run right by the profile. So you do everything you can to make it as safe as possible. And what we've seen today is a total collapse of everything that we've ever planned for.
Yeah, talk about the work that you have done. Do you actually help an airport set up security systems? Tell us your specialty.
Well, my specialty is in the operations of the airline. Security is a part of the operations which is under the control of the airlines.
Professor Jenkins, I want to ask you about the planes that we do know are involved, and we believe there are Boeing 757s and 767s. These are the newest generation planes. From the itineraries that we're getting from the airlines, they all seem to be on long flights.
Yes,
Dulles to L.A., Boston to L.A. Significance there of anything?
Well, they're very large planes, and on long flights they have a lot of fuel, so that type of plane would do maximum damage in terms of explosion. If you used a narrow body on a short haul, you would have less jet fuel on it. So I guess part of the thinking was to get as big a bomb as you could to explode.
Dr. Post, any questions occur to you for your colleague, for Professor Jenkins, as the questions that you too will be studying when you look at this awful day?
Let me just mention Dr. Jenkins and I worked closely with Vice President Gore's Commission on Aviation Safety and Security in the 21st century and put on a major conference at George Washington. One of the 3 tracks was on aviation terrorism in the 21st century, and one of the concerns of a number of the international experts we had at that conference was the increasing frequency of religious fundamentalist terrorism. Having said that, in fact, aviation as a target has been a reduced target just because of the excellence of security. But as Dr. Jenkins points out, when one has a committed group that is willing to give their lives in the process, it's almost impossible to fully defend yourself.
And we've all gone through airports and been asked the questions, did you pack your own bags? Did anyone give you to anything? What Professor Jenkins seems to indicate, and of course the speculation at this point, that you can appear to be like a typical passenger by assuming the customs and mannerisms of typical passengers.
Dr. Jenkins, weigh in on that.
Well, yeah, and I think what's interesting, whoever did this has been thinking about this an awful long time, is very, very well aware of how things operate, and had a great deal of knowledge about airlines and security operations. So I think probably Jerry and I are going to spend some time with the airlines and the FAA and others, and we're going to be doing a a lot of thinking about the future and what we're going to do to make sure something like this never happens again.
We just want to tell our viewers what they're seeing now. This is tape, and we'll try to, make that clear when it is tape of when they were evacuating the White House earlier in response to this incident.
We also want to point out, too, Ark, that the D.C. National Guard is telling all members of the 372nd MP Battalion, Military Police Battalion, and that includes all the subordinate companies of the 372nd. They're being told to report to the Army as soon as possible. So if you're a D.C. National Guard member in the 372nd Military Police Battalion, please report for duty.
Just want to update a couple of other things. The Red Cross is making an appeal for blood donations. We also understand that Verizon is experiencing some phone problems. Is it just with cell service? Where are the Verizon problems? Landlines and cell service,
Right.
no doubt, because so many people are obviously trying to call into Washington, out of Washington,
right.
because of concern over the situation here. So you may be experiencing some problems with your phone service.
Dr. Jenkins, I want to ask you a quick question about security in the cockpit. We've been told that those cockpit doors are often open, even though they're locked. They're often open and closed during the flight attendants going back and forth and that sort of thing, the pilots even coming back and forth. But are those doors supposed to be secure enough to keep people from getting in there?
The doors are secure, and under normal circumstances, a passenger on himself without any external force would not be able to get in. So I assume, I'm not sure what they were using. There are probably items in the galley there that you could take, and if you had more than one or two people, you can pretty well go through any door.
Wouldn't, though, is there any sort of instant alarm, silent alarm, anything that goes off initially after the first incident that would have alerted the FAA and certainly airline officials that there was a problem? Because obviously we had a series of these incidents within a fairly short time.
I am not sure of anything that happened in any of these cockpits. Generally, the pilots are in communication with their system operating centers, and the pilots are also in communication with the FAA. Flights were diverted way off course, so we obviously knew something what was going on. I think the assumption probably usually is in a hijacking that somebody wants to go to Cuba.
Right. That is the.
So you're saying, right, that this scenario was not really an anticipated scenario?
I have no idea what people have been anticipating on these. These are, nor what am I likely to chat about it either, since these are held very close to the FAA's chest and the airline's chest as well.
This is totally unprecedented in the annals of terrorism. The closest, as I mentioned earlier, comes in terms of the simultaneous attacks on our two embassies.
218 people, I believe, were killed in that attack.
Right. And it demonstrates, people call terrorism the undeclared war, and it's very hard to not experience this attack on our major commercial center, the capital of our country, and not feel that we are in a state of war.
Yeah.
Dr. Post, I want to ask you a quick layman's question. For years, people were saying, with all the satellite surveillance we do, with all the resources the CIA, the Mossad, and other intelligence agency employs, how come no one's been able to find Osama bin Laden?
The satellites cannot peer into the mind of a man, cannot peer into cellars where a group is making plans together, and it is such a difficult target. This emphasizes all the more how important it is to be devoted human intelligence resources to this daunting target. All the technology in the world really isn't going to help.
And as layman, would there be a danger had one of these intelligence agencies simply tried to assassinate him and succeeded?
I won't comment on the assassination.
Okay.
I want you to stand by for just a moment. We do want to go to our Holly Morris, because we've just heard this appeal from the Red Cross asking for blood. Just recently, Holly Morris was at the Red Cross National Command Center there in Falls Church to talk about how they mobilize for disasters. Holly, weigh in.
Yeah, I know, and we definitely know they are hard at work today. And in fact, this is one of those situations where it exceeds what the local chapters can handle, and that's when the Disaster Operations Center goes into action. And they are no doubt working around the clock now down in the basement there in Falls Church. We are live, though, in the north parking lot here at the Pentagon. As you can see, the smoke's still billowing, and I wanted to show you that because it's significant, because we just talked with Major Ryan Yantis. He is with the Army, and he was inside helping those who were injured, and he came out to give us a brief update, and what he said is the fire is indeed still burning inside, and you can tell that by the very black smoke that is still burning. And if you're looking at this picture, you can see the blackest smoke is off to the right-hand side, and as long as you see that deep black smoke, the fire is still burning. There are different agencies, he said, inside still fighting the fire. They are unsure at this point of the total number of casualties, but they have treated a lot of people with burns, cuts, abrasions, smoke inhalation, and in fact we saw the makeshift triage center as we were walking across the river entrance of the Pentagon earlier this day. I think we have some of that footage. If we can show that, you'll see this is where the Red Cross people, volunteers, were getting together. Also staff within the Pentagon were getting their directions to go inside, and they were getting all the different supplies that they needed. You heard John Hinrahan reporting that they were calling for more supplies over here, and in fact there still are people inside that are injured. Major Ryan Yantis confirmed that for us. He said inside you will see a lot of structural damage, as you can imagine, but also still people in there who are hurt that they are working on. And in fact, they moved part of that triage into the inside of the building so they could get those supplies closer to those people. They are still trying to account for the number of people that were inside in the area that was hit. Major Yantis did confirm to us that the area that was hit was an area where both military and civilians were working. I asked him specifically what area, if he could give us a better picture, because I know, Michael, you were asking about this earlier, of where exactly the plane went down, and he said he was going to draw us a map and bring that back out to us. So as soon as I get that, I will share that with all of you so that we can get a better idea. Of course, the Pentagon, huge in and of itself, 20,000 people working there, the exact area that was affected the most. But right now, for the past, I would say, 30 minutes or so, it's been kind of quiet here. We haven't heard too many sirens, and it just looks like right now they are attending to the wounded inside. Lark and Michael?
Holly, can you give us any sense? One report was saying it appeared to be an area where senior personnel would have been working. Have you heard that from any people there on the scene?
We haven't heard that from anyone. We asked that question to Major Yantis, and he would not confirm it. He said he would draw us a map, though, so maybe that'll better give us an idea of who exactly was at work in the area where the plane went down this morning. So we'll keep you updated as soon as we get the information.
All right, Holly, thanks very much. We're going to go to now Patrick McGrath, I believe.
I want to go to Pat. Before we do, let's mention a couple of things, though, Pat. That National Airport, they're saying, is going to stay closed till 11 a.m. tomorrow at the earliest. We do want to let people know that. And there's now an impact across the country. Major League Baseball is canceling its schedule. Disney World is closing. This is having a major impact across the country.
In Minneapolis, for example, Dr. Post, the IDS Tower, which is their largest building in downtown Minneapolis, is closed. But in reality, how long can we continue these types of... We can't stay out of malls and baseball stadiums and the National Mall for an...
That's right.
But I'm not going to give you a chance to answer, Dr. Post, unfortunately, because we do need to go to Patrick
Let's go to Pat McGrath on
I'll
the
get an
mall.
answer for that in a second.
Pat.
Well, Lark and Mike, just if we can make a point of good news, behind me is the Capitol. The Capitol was evacuated without incident. That is truly the #1 symbol of our country. Unfortunately, that was not targeted. Let me show you, though. I'm here on 14th and the Mall. Take a look down the street here. This is one of the major arteries for leaving our downtown Washington area. There are no cars on it right now to speak of, but there is traffic flowing, and indications are that that the traffic is flowing much better than it was. Earlier today at 8th and Pennsylvania Avenue, I saw some breakdown. You're looking now at the Washington Monument and panning around. And as you can see, there are people strolling around. There is no sense of panic. People, I think, see this as a precautionary measure, and they're not too much worried about that. At 8th and Pennsylvania Avenue, earlier. There was one breakdown that I witnessed. Cars that were headed down to the Capitol got impatient, and they went into the oncoming traffic lanes, and there were still oncoming traffic. So there was some breakdown there. But for the most part, people have been very orderly and very patient about trying to evacuate. Earlier in the day, I ran into Mike McCurry, the White House press secretary under President Clinton. He was also the State Department press secretary. He says he's never seen anything like it. That's kind of the statement of the day from everybody, including McCurry. He said the White House knows how to go to war, and that's what they're probably working on now. And he doesn't mean literally a full-scale war, but he clearly is talking about a major military response. He said the experts have been saying for years that terrorism would come to this country, so in a way it is not a huge surprise, and that it is finally here. McCurry says the key here is that to have a proportionate, swift, and just response to this attack and get those responsible. Of course, the big question now is, what is proportionate in this matter? We've never had a terrorist attack this great on our country, and what would be a proportionate response? No one has any answers to that. The other thing McCurry emphasized is rumor control. He said in Oklahoma City, early on, there were reports that it was a terrorist-controlled terrorist incident, which turned out not to be. Now, this clearly is terrorism. That's not an issue, but it's still important to emphasize to keep rumors under control and separate what did happen from what didn't happen. And Lark, incidentally, I know you left the air briefly to talk to your daughter. McCurry, I wanted him to come down here as well, but he was concerned about his wife and his daughter as well, and so he had his priorities as well. Mike and Lark, back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Pat, for that update.
We want to go now back down to Bob Barnard. Bob, are you still joining us from K Street in the area there?
K in Connecticut, and I don't know if you can tell now, there are uniformed officers here now in this main intersection here directing traffic. And there's a little, besides what you're seeing right now, it's been a little more orderly in the last hour or so. In fact, they have blocked off this one stretch of highway here. Actually, it's Connecticut Avenue, 17th Street, going back toward the White House. So it's been shut down. Police are in the intersection here. Fewer people are in the downtown area, even though it is still lunch hour. I am thinking because of what we saw in terms of numbers within the last hour and a half or so, that most people have already made their way home. They're out of here. And what people are telling us from Metro, passengers from Metro, is that the red line is running the entire way, but that the yellow and blue lines are being affected because of the fire out at the Pentagon, the pictures you've been showing our viewers, the fire from the Pentagon. But again, you see police are trying to take control here, and frankly, motorists are disregarding the traffic lights. People are just going. Not a sense of panic. Patrick was saying that down there on the mall. Not a sense of panic, but people are just trying to get out of here, and they're not quite really paying attention to the traffic signals. Now police are helping out. As you look up Connecticut there, that was up toward DuPont Circle. Fewer people on the roads now, people and families just trying to get out of the downtown area.
So much our Bob Barnard downtown there, Connecticut and Kay. In the studio with us is Dr. Gerald Post of George Washington University, who has studied terrorism for many years, served on many federal panels looking at this, has done psychological profiles of terrorists. One telling moment, you say, when you first looked up and saw a TV screen and saw the smoke and the fire, you said to yourself, why are they running a movie at this hour? Right. It was so surreal, even to you.
Absolutely. And this is really extremely unprecedented, the simultaneous attack on two cities, simultaneous attacks within this city, which could only come from a group that has very sophisticated logistics, the capacity to coordinate multiple cells, and that strongly suggests, as with the simultaneous bombings in Kenya and Tanzania, Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda organization.
You know, Dr. Post, we had always said that after the Oklahoma City bombing that we would never be the same way we would be after that, and certainly that will be the case again today. But how much more can we change the way, we were going to be hearing some folks in New York. I just want to ask you quickly, how much more can we change the way we live?
Well, that's the problem. We can turn into a siege state, such as they experience day in and day out in Israel, but the terrorists really have won then. And the question is how to be appropriately secure and still maintain our open democratic way of life.
Dr. Post, we want to thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's my great pleasure.
We do appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Post. We'll check with you again in the coming days, I'm sure.
Once again, we're looking now at the situation at the Pentagon. Our reporters Holly Morris and Audrey Barnes are there. That's on the right-hand side of your screen. On the left-hand side of your screen, New York City, emergency service workers there and ambulances, no doubt every ambulance that can move on the job there in Lower Manhattan, where the two World Trade Center towers, each 110 stories high, has collapsed.
I do want to mention now, we talked about baseball postponing its schedule today. Also now the PGA Tour, the golf tournament, is canceling Thursday's start of the World Golf Championship and 2 other tournaments because of these terrorist attacks.
Noel Tucker now joins us on the phone. Fox 5's Noel Tucker with word on hotels. Noel, what can you tell us?
Well, this is just happening right now. Just getting this information. A police officer standing guard at 22nd in New Hampshire tells me the Wyndham City Hotel is being evacuated after a bomb threat. Also, the Monarch Hotel on 2401 M Street is being evacuated from a bomb threat. He says a number of other major hotels are being evacuated. And get this, he says, according to the radio traffic, the police radio he's listening to, police are apparently finding packages. He could not confirm this. This is an officer standing guard here on this street, which has been blocked off now to traffic. And he is saying he is hearing on the radios that police are finding actual packages that are suspicious. So far, the Monarch Hotel and the Wyndham City Hotel are being evacuated, as well as a number of other hotels. He couldn't name them specifically. Right now, at 22nd in New Hampshire, the road is blocked off on New Hampshire down to about M Street, and traffic around here is bumper to bumper, not moving at all.
But no, we should point out that is police traffic. It's often the first report of officers talking to each other. And at this stage of the game, does everything appear to be orderly as they're getting the guests out of these hotels?
Yes, people do look like they're walking. Some people still standing around, and there is definitely a police presence here. They have the tape up around the block. They have all the police cars here, but no real action. I don't see any bomb squads. I don't see anyone rushing around. Police at this point just standing guard. And as you mentioned before, this officer with the D.C. Police Department tells me he cannot confirm any of these packages being found, but this is what he is hearing on his police radio.
Okay, thank you so much, Noel Tucker. And again, do want to emphasize it's unconfirmed, but it does give you a sense of the potential chaos that can be created when you have actual horrific events. So if others do want to try to capitalize on this or to create even more chaos, tie up police resources, you can do that fairly easily. And obviously the authorities are going to try to sort out what threat is real, what's credible, what is most urgent. They're going to have to prioritize here. Of course, we have reporters out all around the Washington area monitoring the situation. Our Will Thomas has been in Northwest Washington.
Good afternoon. Will Thomas coming to you from Wisconsin Avenue in Chevy Chase, Maryland. As many of you know, this is a major commuter artery from Washington into Maryland. Right now, a real parking lot. It looks more like a time during the morning or rush hour commute, a real parking lot. Many people leaving work, some people leaving to pick up their kids, some people leaving town, like this man, Ali. Where are you headed?
Miami, Florida.
Now, why are you leaving the city?
Why am I leaving the city? It's not that I'm buying into the panic. I just want to be safe. You know, this is Washington, D.C. It's the capital of the United States. God forbid anything else happens, I just want to take a risk.
Now, I just spoke to you a moment ago. You said your family is in Pakistan. How is this story playing out there?
They're condemning everything. They're saying this is horrible. You know, America is one of our good friends. It is absolutely disgusting what has happened over here.
And of course, we're seeing a lot of this. Right now, what you saw, 2 Suburbans filled with what appeared to be Secret Service police officers. It's hard to exactly tell what type of law enforcement officials they were, but you could see them in flak jackets and guns. They may be just heading to protect a building, to secure an area, which is the case throughout Washington, D.C. right now, and of course much of New York. But at this point, we haven't heard of anything happening in this area, Chevy Chase, Maryland, Bethesda, and Northwest Washington, other than people just trying to get home or leave the area. As you just heard from Ali, some people just want to leave the town, leave the area temporarily. But what we can tell you is from what we're seeing, people appear to be obeying traffic signs and appear to be taking a little extra time, which may be the best advice right now. In just a few minutes, we're going to head to a nearby metro station. We'll report from there. For now, I'm Will Thomas. Back to you.
All right, that was our Will Thomas reporting from Northwest Washington. We do want to go now to our Audrey Barnes at the Pentagon, and we do want to mention now that Pentagon spokespeople are now talking about the possibility not only of extensive casualties, but an unknown number of fatalities. So let me be sure, what's the picture that we're seeing now? Is this New York we're seeing here? It's so hard to sort this out. Audrey Barnes is at the Pentagon. Let's go to our Audrey. Let's go to Audrey Barnes.
Lark, there's still quite a scene out here. Right now it's shifted from a fire mission to primarily a rescue mission. They're trying to get some of the patients out of there. There's a lot of medical personnel that have been bussed in from different hospital centers that are now on the scene, helping with to triage patients there on the grounds. And some patients have already been airlifted out here. We've seen several ambulances go by as well, transporting patients to local hospitals. And as you can see, the flames are still shooting out of the windows of the Pentagon. And this is several hours after that plane went into the building. And about half an hour ago, we saw another 12-vehicle caravan of emergency vehicles from Washington, D.C., Arlington, the surrounding area, go back over to the Pentagon scene to help with the fire and the rescue effort over there. We're told from people who've been on the grounds of the Pentagon that there are several people who were critically injured, lots of people bleeding, lots and lots of injuries, dozens of people on the grounds there being treated by a team of medical personnel that are actually on the grounds of the Pentagon treating those who are too hurt, too injured to move at this point. Pentagon employees that have been coming by are telling me they're told that they've been sent home for the day and are being told they don't know when they will be allowed to return to the Pentagon. And once again, we want to point out the fire is still not out yet. Still quite an active scene down here at the Pentagon. Every time a large military aircraft goes over, police will tell everybody get back until they can make sure that there is no danger. And that's happened at least a couple of times since that original plane went down. We've seen some military aircraft go over the Pentagon, heading south. Lots of activities still here, and lots of people still in shock. We've seen groups of employees from the Pentagon trying to hook up with other people that they work with, trying to make sure that everyone is accounted for. And a lot of people tell me, frankly, they're in shock. They've never seen anything quite like this and don't know exactly how to react out here at the Pentagon.
Audrey, we have a quote from Nebraska Senator Chuck Hagel that sums up probably what a lot of people are thinking. He is now calling today's terrorist attacks the second Pearl Harbor.
Yes, and we also will have some updates now on some local government action here. Arlington officials are asking now all deputy sheriffs and fire department personnel report to their stations. Those on standby should definitely call in to see if they're needed. I'm going to hazard a guess that they will be needed. Also, as we have been reporting, D.C. National Guard, 372nd Military Police Battalion, and all supporting companies also asked to report to the Armory. I do believe we'll also have some new pictures now of New York City and the collapse of the Twin Towers. We'll be seeing those shortly. No hard estimate yet of casualties. This is the scene on the ground, and a horrific one at that. You can see people in the lower Manhattan part of where the Twin Towers, they're covered with dust and rubble for those buildings. Unfortunately, though, these are the lucky ones, those able to walk away from this terrible, terrible disaster.
All right, and these are some of the first ground level pictures that we're seeing up close of some of the folks who were underneath. As you said, these are the lucky ones. They are able to walk away, but it just gives you some sense there. I mean, just look at the streets, look at the level of dust from these collapsing buildings. Yeah.
As we'll have much, now this picture's taken obviously when at least one of those towers was still standing. I believe this is the first tower, tower number 2, which was hit first just before 9 o'clock. Our Paul Wagner joins us live once again.
Wait, this is the collapse, and this is literally, you can just watch this picture for a moment. Not a demolition, an act of terrorism.
We are going to go now to Paul Wagner at the D.C. Police Headquarters. Paul? We'll hope to get Paul for us in a second as we continue to look at these pictures. Now, this is the collapse of the second tower. Both collapsed within relatively short order of each other, unable to withstand the damage from those plane attacks. In each case, a large plane, perhaps a 757, 767, dove into the building. Our aviation expert, Darrell Jenkins of George Washington University, theorizing perhaps terrorists favored those planes because they were so large early into long flights when they would still be carrying lots of fuel. And there's Paul. I believe you're on the phone for us now. Paul? Okay.
Paul, can you hear us? We'll obviously try to get to Paul because he was telling us just a short while ago about the mobilization that's going on, about officers being called in, extra resources, about Chief Ramsey being in the command center. Paul, can you hear us now? Well, bear with us, folks. Obviously, this is a developing situation, and there are some problems with the phone lines. You may be experiencing some yourselves. We don't want to lose sight here of one of the things that's becoming abundantly clear, that before this day is over, we're going to be counting up a number of fatalities. Of course, there are those missing airplanes, 2 American planes, 2 United planes that have crashed. Also concern now about the Pentagon. We heard our Holly Morris talk about people being asked whether or not they were prepared to deal with body bags. So we are talking about fatalities, and not just somewhere else, folks, but here in the Washington area.
We do have Paul Wagner on the phone right now. So, Paul, let's go over to you. What can you tell us?
Michael and Lark, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. I'm outside D.C. Police Headquarters. The streets in this area have all been closed down. D.C. police recruits are ringing the building along with yellow police tape, guarding this area. No one is being allowed inside. We do know that D.C. Police Chief Charles Ramsey is in the Special Operations Command Center directing his officers from inside there, staying in touch with the FBI, the Secret Service, the ATF. In this downtown area, we continue to hear sirens constantly wailing up and down the streets. I've seen a number of command vehicles, buses, bomb squad vehicles coming up and down the streets, some heading into the 3rd Street Tunnel, apparently heading over towards Virginia. We do know that every D.C. police officer, a sworn D.C. police officer, has been called in. They will be working 12-hour shifts. In addition, the recruits, as I mentioned, are here just up the street from me at the FBI's Washington field office. That has been shut down. All civilians have been told to leave the building, and it is ringed now by FBI agents with machine guns and shotguns guarding the building. 1 Judiciary Square, a little different. There are police officers in this area, but they are not guarding the building like they are here at police headquarters and over at the FBI's Washington field office. Now, I spoke with a spokesperson inside the field office a short while ago trying to get information, but they were basically telling me that they were having just as much trouble getting information as everyone else is, that everyone has been swamped with calls, trying to get information, then trying to exchange that information. So at this point, even the FBI's Washington field office, the people trying to give out information to the news media, also unclear exactly what is happening at this point. Now, I spoke with the chaplain of the D.C. Police Department a few minutes ago. He rides a motorcycle for the D.C. police. He took his motorcycle across the bridge to see if he could help over at the Pentagon. He described it as just utter devastation, chaos, trying to put out the fire when he was there, and believing that there were a number of casualties there, but he was told that the military chaplains were on the scene and his services weren't needed, and he felt like he was needed back here in the city, and so he came back here. So that's a little bit of the flavor here in this area and exactly what's happening. Do you have any questions, Lark or Michael?
At this point, no, Paul, because we do want to give some updated information. Unfortunately, we just seem to have lost our computers here on our desk. At this point, we are hearing that the Pentagon was aware that a plane had been hijacked shortly before that impact at the Pentagon. Also, we understand that the impact came on the side of the Pentagon opposite from where Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld's offices are.
You do also want to know what is happening in terms of financial markets overseas. In Europe, declined sharply in the wake of these terrorist attacks here in the United States. Hardest hit Germany's market, where a key index closed, let's see, down about 10.5%. So obviously this is affecting world markets. The markets do not like uncertainty, and obviously these terrorist attacks have set off.
However, the Fed did move this morning to assure U.S. banks that they would make money available to make sure that the U.S. system does remain liquid, of course, especially during the next 24 hours, and not wanting to set off a financial panic as everything sorts itself out here with that blast taking place at what really is the world's financial center down in Wall Street area.
All right. We do want to go now with someone with U.S. Park Police, Rob McLean. Am I saying your last name correctly? Please forgive me if I'm... Yes. Please go ahead. Tell us the response of the U.S. Park Police to this horrific day.
Obviously, initially, the United States Park Police helicopter responded to the Pentagon minutes after the plane crashed into that building. That helicopter has done numerous medevacs of the injured persons out of that building. Right away, all monuments and memorials were then closed and evacuated as well. Obviously, an enormous task with all the tourists and the citizens in the D.C. area. We used all our available resources to get that accomplished.
We had heard reports of a number of threats that may have been made against monuments out on the National Memorial, specifically the Washington Monument. Did you receive those?
These evacuations were precautionary. I'm not aware of any specific threats to any specific monument or memorial.
Have you called in your officers, putting them on special shifts? What's the status of all park police officers?
Yes, all park police officers have been called in, and we just instituted 12-hour shifts for our personnel as well.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us with that update. We do appreciate it.
Right now, we do want to go to our Beth Parker. She is live at the U.S. Capitol. Beth, what is the situation there? This building was evacuated, the complex there evacuated earlier this morning. Beth?
Yeah, that's right, Michael. The Capitol was evacuated, and it's almost like the city is, in a way, kind of shut down. If you look back behind me, you can see that smoke, that gray smoke still billowing from the Pentagon. We are told that fire still burning 4 hours now after the Pentagon was struck by a commercial jetliner. Looking around down here, the streets are actually quite quiet. The Capitol building, as you said, has been evacuated. There were Capitol Police earlier who were drawing those yellow police tapes that you see so often at crime scenes all around the Capitol grounds, not just the building, but the whole area surrounding it. Earlier, I was actually at Union Station trying to get on a train to go to New York and managed to get on the train. It was a 10:10 train, and they actually then pulled us off the train, and not just pulled us off the train, but evacuated all of Union Station. Earlier this morning, it was a very hectic scene in terms of traffic, far, far worse than any rush hour I have ever seen. It's calmed down a lot here. It's clear that a lot of the government employees have gone home, and a very emotional situation out here on the sidewalks. Everybody stopping, wanting to know what's the latest, what's happening. This is certainly a side of Washington that I have never seen. Reporting live on Capitol Hill, Beth Parker. Michael, back to you.
Okay, I'll take it, Beth. And obviously, that's what many people are saying, that they haven't seen anything like this. And for people who just joined us, we probably should recap a little bit of your day, that you first headed to National Airport to try to catch a plane. Just take us through your day, Beth, and what you've been encountering.
Yeah, the traffic was already pretty unbelievable just around 9:30 as I headed to National Airport to catch a plane. We learned as we were headed there that they were actually shutting down the airports in New York. That was before they shut things down at National as well. So then we rerouted, and the traffic was just unbelievable chaos in terms of trying to get through downtown and over to Union Station. As I said, I finally got there, managed to get on the 10:10 train. It seemed to be a lot of business travelers, a lot of people talking about what was going on, but most weren't really aware of the extent of it. And there was a point at which the conductor came on the overhead system and told us that there was a possibility that this train was, in fact, not going to leave the station. We know the 10 o'clock train headed to New York, but our 10:10 train did not. Everybody was pulled off the train and then quickly ushered out of Union Station, and I actually left my car in the parking lot behind Union Station, and like a lot of people, was not even able to get to the car, just kind of stranded. We saw a combination of people at Union Station, obviously tourists who are always in this area seeing the sights, and of course lots of business travelers as well. A lot of people eager to get to New York, but certainly understanding what is happening here and that this is absolutely unprecedented.
Yeah, let's talk about the range of reactions. That some people were just stunned, but you did see at least one person in tears.
Absolutely. As I was driving down 14th Street, I was stopped in traffic and looked across at a woman in another car, and she was looking back at this smoke billowing out of the Pentagon. That was 4 hours ago. And she looked at me, and we actually made eye contact, and looked like she was crying to me. It was just really an intense and emotional scene. Clearly, she had the radio on in her car and was hearing what was happening, and was as stunned, obviously, as everybody else.
All right. Thank you, Beth, for that report, and we will check in with you later. As Beth mentioned, now it's been 4 hours now since this all began to unfold. It was just before 9 a.m. when word came, of an attack against the World Trade Center in New York, and then shortly after that, a plane diving into the Pentagon. We want to go to our Laura Evans now. Laura, tell us where you are.
Lark, I am standing on top of a building of I and 16th Street, down right near the White House. If you take a look behind me, though, you can still see the smoke coming up from the Pentagon. You are looking at smoke coming from the west side of the Pentagon. It's the side of the building that belongs to the Army. Here we are still a while after that plane went into the Pentagon. The smoke's still billowing out. You can see the old Executive Office building, and as we continue to pan left, the White House. The streets, as you can imagine, are shut down. There are just uniformed officers on the streets. Where you can see a lot of traffic is on Constitution Avenue, where there was gridlock just a short time ago. As I am looking right now, I see the traffic is starting to move right now, but we had gridlock just a little while ago. Actually, as I was coming down to meet my photographer to go to the State Department, I was from 22nd and C. We walked down to Constitution Avenue as we saw people coming out of the federal buildings from the State Department to the Treasury Department and everywhere in between, people filing out of those buildings and really with nowhere to go because they can't get on the metro, they can't get to Union Station, they can't even get to their cars to drive out, and if they can get in their cars, they were stuck in traffic, couldn't cross the bridges. As you know, the bridges were closed, so it did create gridlock. We saw dozens of official emergency vehicles trying to get through the traffic. Many of the people that I talked to, of course, were very scared. I talked to a woman who was in her car. She was trying to get to her children. She was crying. Talked to another man who was crippled. He said he was trying to leave the State Department, had to walk down a flight of stairs. He was in pain at that point and couldn't walk any further. People really not knowing what to do because they couldn't get home. And people were trying to use their cell phones, couldn't even call their loved ones to tell them where they were. So we were able to make it to I and 16th, and we're watching this unfold just as well as everyone else is. I want to point out one thing that people are talking about down in the building. I don't know if anyone has thought about the date, but this was called to my attention. It is September 11th, 9/11, which is sort of an eerie fact. But the streets of Washington, a lot of people walking around, really not sure where to go at this point because they just can't get home. Lark?
Or 911. 911, yes, I understand, Laura. And we did just a bit of housekeeping. We want to let people know that you are seeing information on the bottom of your screen now where we're trying to keep you updated on closings, early closings around the area, so you will want to pay some attention to that. Also do want to mention that at 1 o'clock, Mayor Williams is scheduled to hold a news conference. We certainly hope we can bring the mayor's comments to you live. We're not sure what's technically going to be possible. And many churches across the country are letting it be known they're opening their doors so that worshipers can pray for the victims of today's attacks.
And we also do want to remind you, we're trying to give you the best traffic information as we get it. And sometimes these routes are changing as the traffic flows change. So we'll try to keep you up to date. Obviously, the best advice today is you don't have to go anywhere, especially in the downtown areas. Please don't do so. Stay at home, watch the news, because we want to keep as many people off the roads as possible so the people who have to be on there can do. Right now, though, we are going to go live to Audrey Barnes outside the Pentagon. Audrey, what can you tell us?
Michael, I'm joined by Leonard Donaldson, who's a maintenance mechanic here at the Pentagon, and he's actually been inside this building after that plane went down. Tell me, first of all, how did you get involved with this whole operation?
It started when we were in a shop making some metal, and our boss had came out and asked if we felt an explosion, and we said that we didn't. We were banging metal together. And then a couple minutes later, he came back and said there was an evacuation drill, so we went out, and that's when we started hearing rumors that a plane had hit.
Now, you actually carried fire extinguishers into the building. What did you see?
Well, right after we came out for the evacuation, they asked if anybody would volunteer to take some fire extinguishers in for the fire, the fire.
It's been a hard day, you know.
And I carried them back up in there, and when I entered the section where the plane had came down in, there was just rubble, everywhere, scattered from. It was actually from A ring to B ring, and then from there you actually couldn't even see any deeper. It was a lot of black smoke, smell of electrical.
Did you see any victims?
I've seen a few of them coming out on stretchers, but never actually got real close to them.
Well, you said you're pretty familiar with this building. How many people do you think worked in that corridor where this plane went in?
That would be hard to say. I'd say anywhere from, probably 1,000 to maybe 3 or 4.
Describe that part of the Pentagon for us. You had a name for it. What part of the Pentagon did the plane hit?
Well, that's, which is right behind us, is the helipad. Back over there, I think is some logistics over there. I'm not too sure on any of the other agencies that are actually over there at this time.
Did you see firemen actually get into the Pentagon to try to fight the fire from the inside out?
Yeah, they were coming in. A lot of firefighters were coming from the inside, going from A ring into to enter the building, and they had their SCBAs and everything on, ready to go.
Must have been a surreal scene in there for you.
It's a lot of damage. I mean, it's a brand new wedge, and now it's totally destroyed. There's a lot of money that went into that, and It's a lot.
Devastating situation. Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. Well, that's a scene here from the Pentagon. As you can see, the fire crews are still on the scene. They're fighting this fire from the inside and out, but there's still smoke and lots of fire coming from several of the windows, so there's clearly a lot more work to be done here at the Pentagon.
All right, thank you, Audra, for that update. Right, they had been quite proud of the renovation work that had been going on. They're updating, modernizing in sections of that building.
And, you know, it's so interesting. So much of the emphasis here on security in the D.C. area has been based on vehicles, stopping vehicles, giving a perimeter. You know, the gates that exist at the Capitol, outside the White House, there in the Pentagon itself. And who would have thought and who could have imagined that the threat would come from the sky on this day? We are awaiting, as Lark has reported, in just about 5 minutes. We should have the first of several press conferences, first from Mayor Williams and then also from the Washington Hospital Center. Just want to take a moment to remind you of what the situation is travel-wise right now. All federal government offices are closed. National airport closed until at least 11 a.m. tomorrow. It doesn't matter today because there's no air travel anywhere in the United States. Maryland public schools shut down. So many other places shut down. We're scrolling those for you on the bottom of our screen.
And we should point out that in some cases what the school systems are doing, closing early, or they're simply saying to parents you have the option of coming to get your child. So it doesn't mean that they're just going to close the doors and kick the kids out. That in many cases they are simply saying, parents, you can come get them at any time, or they are setting an early closing time. So you do need to be aware of that.
And once again, we do want to give you the timeline of what happened today. That first attack here, just about 9 a.m., 2 planes crash into the World Trade Center just minutes apart. We believe the exact is 18 minutes apart. At 9:30, President Bush speaking after hearing of this while pushing his education plan in Sarasota, Florida.
He was in Florida. And then at 9:45, word of an explosion at the Pentagon, which turned out to be another plane, now believed to be a large commercial plane, crashing into a section of the Pentagon. We know there were casualties. We know the victims have been taken to Arlington Hospital. We are awaiting confirmation of possible fatalities inside the Pentagon building. Then around 10 o'clock, word that a plane had crashed in Pennsylvania, and this is now believed to be one of the United airplanes that is missing. And then about 10 o'clock, these incredible pictures that we have seen earlier of the tower collapsing, followed by the second one, sustaining such major damage, having these airliners deliberately crashed into them.
The president was on the move right away from Florida. Interestingly enough, we are just being told that his plane has landed in Air Force Base in Louisiana, and that he will be issuing a statement from there. So that will be, we'll bring that to you. Obviously, you're looking at this incredibly horrific video of that second plane. That was the second tower to be hit. That's actually sadly to say, tower number 1. And you see the fireball after what's being described as a 767. Sadly, also, we do believe that these planes were, in fact, had passengers on them. The American Airlines planes having at least 156 passengers, crew, and flight attendants on board.
And we do want to, as you mentioned, that President Bush in Louisiana and the president, the commander-in-chief, saying that the military is on high alert status. Certainly no surprise there that the military would now be on high alert status.
And it's entirely possible, too, that the president may remain in the air for some time in different aircraft. The president does have a plane, a modified 747, that can literally stay in the air around the clock, an aerial command post. They may decide that that may be the safest place. No word on that. We do know that he is at this Clarksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, and we are expecting a statement from him shortly. Also, as we pointed out, the mayor's press conference imminent as well right now. And there, once again, we're looking at that video from New York City, which we've been seeing all morning, and this just the dust. And when we saw the ground level shots taken from television stations in New York City, you saw the people, the fortunate ones, able to walk away from this, just covered with the dust and the debris from this crash.
Right. And we should point out, though, it's Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana, that the president, when he made his comments in Florida, did say he was returning to Washington. So but obviously that plan may be changing. They may have decided for any number of reasons that may not be the wisest course at this moment.
Once again, now we're looking at our video from the Pentagon there, 12:58 right now, on sadly a very clear day. And you can see they're still continuing to pour water on the point of impact, this point of impact towards one side of this ringed building. And John Hanrahan reporting from the Arlington Hospital Center that they received at least 30 casualties there. But the discussion now of fatalities, no hard numbers on that. In New York City, we can only guess casualties easily in the 50,000 people working in that complex.
One police official, again, an unnamed police official, was quoted as saying they are looking at thousands of casualties. Yeah.
And when you think about the, by way of comparison, the 1993 bombing produced 1,000 injuries. Just 1,000 injuries, and I believe it was 6 fatalities. And sadly to say, this is going to be many, many, many times that. There we're looking at the Washington Monument, and fortunately, the sky's clear there as well. There's once again the smoke. This, I believe, is from the Riverside parking lot of the Pentagon.
Yeah, but you still get a sense there that obviously this situation is, they still see the war there is not under control. Our Holly Morris was told just a short while ago that things inside were still burning.
Once again, it's amazing that they have been pouring water on that, Lark, since the point of impact. And at one point, the smoke was building all over the building. And there you see a pretty quiet traffic moving fairly slowly, but you can see police officers out in force all along Pennsylvania Avenue there, no doubt trying to keep traffic moving slowly towards the exits to the city.
Yeah. Should emphasize once again that federal workers have been allowed to go home, city government workers. In Virginia, the governor has put the National Guard